I guess my first kind of question would be, so what's kind of like your story? How did you get out to where you are? And
Yeah, I guess I got into all this kind of heritage clothing, whatever you want to call it, thing in like 2014, and I didn't really know anything about it. I wanted to start dressing better back in college, back around 2004 or so, but for the longest time, in the US, especially 2004, 5, 6. I mean, I don't think most guys really knew how to do that or what to do. But I did notice around '05, '06, '07, there was more of sort of like a hashtag, sort of like a menswear little movement. But again, most people were just looking at GQ or something like that. That was all we really had to go off of. So flash forward, I guess, to about 2013. And then I was working at a magazine. They asked me to write an article about a blog called Menswear Dog. And that's a guy, he takes his Shiba and then he puts his clothes on him, like a shirt or like a hat or a scarf. And then he takes a photo of it and he would post it on a blog back then, like a WordPress blog or Tumblr or something like that. And I was like, okay. And then I noticed some of the clothes in there was actually pretty nice. And I was like, well, what is this shirt, this chambray shirt or this scarf from a store, like Hickory's in Brooklyn or this or that. And so I kind of just followed it. And then I looked at his page, and in his bio, it says something like, taking photos, hanging out with my dogs, and never washing my selvage denim. And I was like, selvage denim? What's selvage denim? So I Googled it and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I was living in Taipei, in Taiwan at that time. And I just Googled, I was like, okay, where to buy selvage denim in Taipei? And it said, go to Take 5, which is one of the big stores here. And I just went there and I bought a pair of jeans. And then, I just went from there.
so are you doing, I mean, I'm assuming the right stuff isn't your full-time gig, is it? You still have a,
No, unfortunately, no, it doesn't pay the bills. Yeah, I wish it did. Um, but yeah, I have a day job working in marketing, but
got it.
yeah, but yeah, the right stuff it's not popular enough
Mhm.
just yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely, would you say that it's definitely just more of a kind of passion project at this point?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. Everything's still small batch. It's just, a handful of products a year, but it's slowly gaining steam. I mean, it's getting slowly getting bigger and bigger each time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you kind of run it specifically as like a passion project or more of a business, or is it kind of both for you? Does it kind of fit mainly into one or the other? How do you?
It's kind of both. I mean, it would be nice to make some money because that helps me make products. I mean, if I put a big product out there like a work shirt and it doesn't sell well, that's kind of a big blow. And I can't afford to have like two or three big products fail. I basically would have to stop.
Yeah.
So I try not to keep pouring or investing more money into. I want it to run on its own. But at the same time, it is a passion project because I only really make things that I want to make, or that I would want to wear. I mean, if I was really smart, I would just make things that I think are popular and would sell well, and I wouldn't, whether I like, I would just make lots of whatever I think is popular, slim taper jeans or this or that, because that's big, but it's not what I like,
Yeah.
so I don't really want to do something that I don't really believe in.
Hmm. How would you
Yeah.
kind of describe your style for the right stuff? Like, what would you describe it as?
My focus really is on 1910s, 20s, and 30s workwear. That's 90%, 95% of what interests me anyway.
Mhm.
And then that's what I try to make basically. I'm not really interested in anything from like 1940 and on.
Got it.
Anything from that point, I kind of mostly, except for some things, I mean, like boots got more interesting in the 40s and 50s. But in terms of clothing, like pants, shirts, that kind of stuff, hats or whatever, that's sort of like the golden age, or that's sort of the high point, for, I guess, a variety of reasons.
Yeah. Is your
Yeah.
stuff, I've had a hard time telling just because of how vintage and convincing all your kind of branding and labeling is. Would you do kind of like direct reproductions, or are all your pieces just inspired by vintage pieces?
I don't necessarily do 100% direct reproductions every time out, because if you've ever handled like actual sort of 20s or 30s work shirts, like for example, they'll be like really long, much longer than most people are used to. Like, let's see what, hold on. Like here's a 1930s work shirt that's been cut off into a short sleeve. You can see it's almost down to my knees in
Yes.
terms of how long it is. So there are some details that myself or any sort of modern audience wouldn't like. Um, so shirts tend to be pretty big and pretty long, even if it's your right size. You'll find that they might be very puffy and oversized or billowy, sort of look like a middle manager kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so I do take a little bit of liberty with maybe shortening things or doing a little bit of tapering here and there. But otherwise, yeah, otherwise it's kind of, I try to keep it accurate otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was kind of the first push, or like the mental, like I guess, signal to yourself that you really wanted to seriously pursue making clothes?
Uh, Back around like 2014 or 15, I had a coworker, American guy, who was going to move back to the US. And he was just asking us what we were thinking of doing in the future. And then he asked me if I was thinking of opening a store to sell this kind of clothing. And I was like, yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but that sounds it sounds cool. It sounds better than, I guess what I was doing at the time. I was like, yeah, maybe. So I thought about that, and I had that idea in the back of my mind for a while. But then, I don't know. Okay. Then the next step, I kind of put it on the shelf. And then the next thing was a conversation people we were having on Super Future, on Super Denim, on the forum. And I remember Kyle Cold Summer, um, what's his Instagram handle? Rock Transformed.
Mhm.
And he was saying, because he's kind of tall, he's tall and thin and kind of lanky. And he was saying it would be great if someone would do like made to order shirts with like Japanese or fabrics, but sort of made to measure, that could maybe fit, different body types or different people, or maybe Western body types or something like that. And he said, I don't plan to do it, but maybe someone else should do it.
Mhm.
And I thought, yeah, maybe I could do something like that. So I thought about being a one-man brand for a while. Um, but I kind of decided against it, I guess, because, it would end up taking, I don't know how many years before I was ready to go and to sell my products. And I definitely would have had to move out into a bigger place and bought all the machines and all of that. And I was like, yeah, that could take a little while. And then even if I do eventually get big, I guess I'd just end up being chained to a desk or something somewhere,
Yeah.
because I'd be so busy with orders. So I was like, yeah, okay. But then I remembered that John Lofgren had made some small batch clothing runs here and there for people before. Like he had done one for a guy, he goes by Bandana Almanac. I think he runs the Two Ears brand bandanas now. And back around 2014, I think he made a pair of canvas, sort of like cotton duck canvas pants for him. And he had done a couple of things like that. Another brand called Heritage Research, which is gone. I'm not sure if they became TSPTR. I don't know what the deal is there, but they kind of disappeared. And so I just sent John an Instagram message around that time, and he didn't reply at first, maybe for like 7 or 8 or 9 days. And I kind of gave up on it. I was like, okay, well, he's not, he didn't read, he's not going to reply, he's too big for me anyway. But then he did, after about a week or so, he replied, he says, yeah, we can do it. Uh, we'll just take it from there. Are you going to be at Inspiration LA in a couple of months? And I was like, no, probably not. And then he said, well, you can fly out can you make it out to my office in Sendai in Japan? I was like, okay, I can do that. And so I went, and then that was that.
Do you possess any skills as far as like sewing, drawing, pattern making, anything like that?
I'm not very good at sewing, so that was another reason why I didn't go, the one-man brand area. I don't need to make the patterns exactly. I mean, I will draw up the designs, and then because pattern making is a little different, I mean, I might do pockets, or I mean, I have, that's hard to see, but I have pocket designs and whatnot here. But yeah, it's not really necessary, I think, for me to completely make the pattern, because we work with such good pattern makers who can go off of my drawings. So
yeah,
that kind of, it's actually not entirely necessary. Yeah.
Let's see here. So what was the first piece that you designed?
The Heracles shirt in blue indigo. I think this is the second run. The first one didn't have a chin strap and had different buttons. The sleeves and body were longer, but it was the Heracles shirt. But just because that was my favorite shirt design overall, and still is. And it was kind of my desert island piece. Like, okay, if I could only have one shirt ever, again on an island or whatever, which one would it be? And it was that one. And I didn't want to do anything that was sort of too straightforward or too simple or something, because it had to make, I'm only going to have one product. So it needed to be a little bit of a statement,
Yeah.
Not too plain. Yeah.
So what does your kind of design process look like for coming up with new ideas or designing new pieces?
Well, I mean, I have a bunch of old catalogs, and I basically spend a lot of my free time just researching stuff online or in person, whatever I find, old photos, old catalogs. I have tons and tons of old advertisements from the 1910s and 20s and that kind of stuff. I mean, they're all over, they're just littered. They're all over my office. So I'll look at that, and then I'll try to find actual examples of them online, or if I can afford to buy one, that would be nice, but it gets really expensive. And then I think about, for example, if it's a shirt, what shirt design do I like? What fabric do I like? Is there something I want to do differently? Do I want to do a pocket with flaps? Or do I want to do a pocket with no buttons? Or do I want to do a pocket with like the, sort of bellows in the middle, expandable, or whatever? And then I'll think of a good example of something that, maybe has already been done. And then do I like everything about it, or do I want to change anything? And then, I'll go from there. But sometimes like you just look at fabrics, and then you think of a shirt that you want to make. Like I have tons and tons of fabric swatches from the mills. And then sometimes you see a fabric and then you think, wow, that would make a really great item, like a shirt or pair of pants. What design would work with that fabric? And then you just go from there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So as far as in your personal design process, like if you were to see a shirt or a design that you really liked and you just felt like it maybe needed a certain embellishment or a certain change, and that might not be completely accurate, would you be okay with making a change like that?
Yeah, because I mean, they did back then,
Yeah, for sure.
Shirts changed in the 20s and then into the 30s, and they tried new things, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Um, so yeah, I don't have any problem with changing things around, or changing a color, or a thread style, stitching style, or a pocket, or anything like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine as long as it looks good to me,
Mhm.
and as long as I feel like it's plausible, or something that would look good, or people would like to an extent. Yeah.
Mhm. How have you gone this I was really curious about this, about, like, finding and gathering a lot of those, like, advertisements and the catalogs and all that kind of stuff. Because 'Cause I've done outside of, like, I know there are a lot of Instagram accounts that, or, places online where they'll post historic photos and stuff like that, but
Mhm,
in
mhm.
general, I've found it kinda difficult to find a lot of pictures, or at least good pictures.
Well, most of those photos you see on Instagram come from a Library of Congress, from the Farm Security Administration, because the government paid for so many photographers to go out during the Great Depression and into the 40s, and take photos of, everyday life everywhere, from farms to factories to towns, downtown schools, whatever. And they took a lot of, really high quality photos, and, so you can find them all on the website. So that's where most of those photos that you see online come from. But there are other sources too. I mean, if you want to go earlier to the 10s and 20s, there's a lot of found photos, and postcards that people will find in places like antique malls, or antique shops, and things like that. I don't know, garage sales or estate sales. They'll find old photo albums, and so there's a lot of stuff in there, because there'll be people, on farms or whatever in the photos, and they're wearing interesting clothes. Um, so you can find those there, or you can just search eBay or whatever, and eventually. But it's one of those things that takes almost every day of checking, looking at, or going through hundreds of postcards until you find one that's good. So it's one of those things that I don't mind doing, but I can see, it is kind of, it's not a chore for me, but it probably would be for a lot of people to kind of sift through so much stuff until you find what you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. For you
Yeah, and then there's also, I mean, there's other places too, online archives and university databases and all kinds of things like that. That again, it just takes a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For you, I feel kind of like, I think there's, especially in the kind of like, reproduction slash heritage kind of part of this, subculture. I think
Yeah.
I think it's mainly just because of brands to make it easier to shop. They do a lot of like, this is the military section, and this is kind of the Western
Hmm.
section, and this is like the
Hmm.
lifestyle section.
Yeah.
You really define your brand within any of that specifically, or how do you think of those kind of distinctions? Because obviously they probably weren't really thought of that way, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Well, I mean, back then everything was compartmentalized. You didn't go. I mean, you only wore overalls if you had to, or if you were working, or if you didn't own better. If you went to church, you wore a suit and tie. And if you worked in a garage, you wore coveralls. And, if you weren't active military or whatever, you wouldn't necessarily wear your army clothes around anymore. So everything was kind of uniforms.
Mhm.
Every facet of life had a different uniform. Um, but I guess, you know, eventually that kind of broke down a little by little, over time. And then once you get into the whole heritage repro thing, in the 70s and the 80s and 90s, I guess you started to have these little subgroups within. There's the workwear style, there's biker style, there's Western clothing style, military, militaria, and then I guess sportswear or something. Um, and a lot of things are still broken down like that, especially in Japan. hunting clothing style. So, and people will mix and match, but I always just gravitated a bit more towards what we would refer to as workwear clothing more than the other styles. I'm not like the biggest military guy. There's some nice pieces, but it was never my interest. And I wasn't never the biggest biker guy, or, I like five pocket jeans, but I don't really like most like Western shirts or anything. So I just always sort of gravitated more towards workwear. And if you look in old catalogs and stuff, it's usually pretty well, defined what are work shirts and what are, that goes with overalls and short coats and this kind of hat and these kinds of boots, and then, work pants. So that always interested me the most.
Mhm. Do you kind of would you kind of define your personal style within that same distinction as well, like your kind of everyday style?
Yeah, that's what I wear every day. It's not like I dress up like that for Instagram, but then in my free time, I go out in like sweatpants and New Balance and Patagonia fleeces or anything like. I mean, some people do, or maybe they have cheat days or something where they go out dressed like a hype beast or something, and I mean whatever. Everyone's got their thing. I mean, if that's what they want to do, I don't care. But for me personally, that's my everyday style. That's how I dress. Even if I didn't have the brand, it's still how I would dress.
Yeah, for sure. Has it
Yeah.
been as far as just wearing every day, like wearing to work and everything, that's never been a issue or a contention or anything like that?
No, I guess the nice thing about here is that no one's going to say anything to me. I'm sure. I mean, I haven't lived in the back in the States for like 9 years now, but I do remember, like I don't know about you're in California.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know about California because I've never been there, but in Texas, you know, or maybe it's all over the US. I don't know. People were often quick to have some sort of comment or like, you know, say something about your appearance or how you dress or something like that, especially if you're even the slightest bit different. Which always kind of annoyed me. I was like, yeah, all right, but I guess the difference is that people there maybe are quicker with compliments or something too. But here, yeah, no one's really gonna say anything, I guess, or they might just mention a little, but then that's it.
Is it
So no
a
one.
culture difference or
Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing. Generally speaking, maybe you just I don't know. I mean, unless someone knows you well, then maybe they'll comment. But people who don't know you, there's not like a whole lot of chit chat on the street where people walk up to you and start, you know, talking to you about what you're wearing or whatever, I guess.
for sure?
So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I could dress like a total nut, in public and no one's gonna say anything. So
yeah, for sure. That's definitely been something for me as far as like I've always just been super into clothes like my whole life and I've
mhm.
style a lot as I try to, find what's right for me and I've really recently settled into this kind of subculture and niche and everything and I think it just really works well for me. But it's just been I think it's such a mental thing. Like we just have this
Yeah,
block in our own heads. And it's
yeah,
the same thing, like I'll see people looking way more outrageous than I am, and I don't give it a second thought. You see them walking by, you notice it for a second, and then you don't give it a
right.
second thought. It's just someone in your life, someone who walks by you. And I think that we so often get into our own heads and like psych ourselves out almost. And especially for someone like if it's really what you love and you really enjoy it, I definitely don't think, being weirded out or having people think you're dressed weird is really the thing. Cause yeah, you're
Yeah,
gonna look weird. You're dressing like people dressed, 100 years ago. You're naturally gonna stand out. It's kind of the point almost.
yeah. Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I mean, who cares,
Yeah,
You only have one shot at this, and it's like, on the one hand, it's, do I really want to be like everyone else? It's
yeah,
like, no, no, not really. So I might as well just do my own thing.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let me see here. So with your stuff, do you I mean, with as kind of still in the beginning, I feel like as it might be, or as small as it might be, you might not have, the direct thought process. But for your brand, do you kind of like the idea more so of releasing like drops or specific like seasons or stuff like that? Or do you like the idea of more of a consistent kind of like rotation of stuff that you consistently just restock and keep going with?
Yeah, I prefer. I don't want to do seasons. I don't really like to do like spring, summer, and fall, winter, because you kind of lock yourself into a schedule a bit too much, and then you feel pressure. "Oh, okay, I have to release, 10 or 20 items every season, and all that kind of stuff." And it's like, well, at that point, then you just start making stuff in order to fill up, a quota or something, like, oh, I have to have this many items. Well, you might not have that much inspiration, you
Yeah.
know. So you might not. And so I don't really want to do all that. And plus, that just gets to be like a big thing, a big order, and a lot to deal with. So I'd rather just release things one at a time when I feel like they're ready, and it's something that I want to make, and I just want to release it here and there. Um, no set schedule, nothing like that, just sort of dropped something out of nowhere, preferably. And so, yeah, I would just rather do that. I don't really want to do like seasons or collections, or, there's nothing wrong with that, but it does kind of box you in a little bit too much, especially if you try to do like a collection with a theme every time. Pretty soon you're going to run out of a theme, and
Hmm.
you're going to start grasping for straws and doing weird themes or something. So I don't want to get him too wrapped up in that kind of thing.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What would you say is like the item or the thing that you've been the most proud of like throughout this process?
Oh, I mean, I guess the Heracles shirt has been popular. I've made it twice and changed the design a little bit for the second time, and I don't know what the most popular item has been. That would be up there. The Sage Atlas has been pretty popular. The Daybreak pants have been pretty popular, but I guess the Heracles was the first one, and I've made it twice, and I guess I'll make it again this year for a third time. Um, it's one of those things that I can restock every once in a while, and it should do well.
Mhm.
And yeah, that would probably be it.
Have you had any like mess ups or mistakes that you've been able to learn from since you started?
Oh yeah, tons.
What would be one?
Um, I mean, at first, obviously, I didn't know what I was doing. I had some advice from John Lofgren, but I still had to learn a lot of stuff. And like the first time out, I made 100 Heracles in just one color, and I should have picked probably two colors and done 50 of each, because starting out, and I just have one product and just one color, so it took a while to sell all of those shirts. So that was a mistake, and yeah, every once in a while things like that happen, or you figure out who's a good store to work with or who's not, um and I had to figure out stuff like shipping items. Um yeah, there definitely been some mistakes. I mean, this past year we came out with some products, and some sold better than others, and I had to figure out why that is. But yeah, overall, yeah, I've learned some stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. Do you have anyone who stocks your stuff, or is it just sold through the website?
Yeah, I have. I've had stockists, different. I've had some that have come and gone. Currently in the U.S., my only stockist in the U.S. right now is Blue and Green in New York,
Got it.
which they were one of the first stores in the U.S. to start carrying this kind of clothes. Actually,
Mhm.
before Self Edge and some of the others, they were around, and and they've been great. I mean, they've been interested in almost all of my products recently. One of the co-founders, he had been buying from me for several years, and I didn't realize he was one of the co-founders of the store.
Yeah.
And later I found that out. I was like, oh, I had no idea. Um, but yeah, in the US, I have blue and green, and in Spain, I have Red Cast Heritage, which they're in Spain, but they kind of serve all of the EU. They're all online, but they do all their information. It's all in English.
Mhm.
So people in Germany or other countries can order from them. In the UK, I have Those That Know, sometimes TTK, you'll see their name. And they're an all online store in the UK. And I have one here right now in Taiwan, in southern Taiwan, called Mr. Old is a store. And then of course John Lofgren's store Speedway in Sendai, they will usually stock most of my items as
Got
well.
it. So do
Yeah.
you like the shipping and distribution of stuff as well? Or do you handle as far as like the shipment of the items?
I handle that. I mean, because they help make the items. If they want to stock them, once we make them, they'll keep, what
Oh,
they want. And then they'll send the rest to me. And then I will deal with everything else on my end, with sending shirts to stores or to customers. Yeah.
got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What would you say is something that maybe you haven't been able to make yet that you would be interested or want to make in the future?
I've got about 4 or 5 shirt designs that are kicking around in my head right now that I'm going to make over the next couple of years.
Mhm.
Um, I'm working on a sample right now for a Wabash pullover work shirt, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, it goes well, and then we can release that next year. But I've got a few more that different styles of work shirts that I want to make. And I wouldn't mind doing the daybreak pants in a different fabric, like herringbone twill or something like that. And I don't know. I don't know if I would maybe make a chore coat or something. Lately, I've been going back to that, and I haven't put sort of pen and pencil to paper yet, but I kind of have a design in my head. And yeah, those are kind of the main ones right now on the horizon for me.
Do you think you'd mainly want to stick to kind of like cloth, not really branch out as far as like leather jackets or boots or anything like that? Is that more outside of your kind of realm of interest?
Yeah, I don't. The problem is I would have to. All that stuff becomes sort of very heavy and large to ship, and it would be a lot of boxes, and it would cost like $1 million to ship it. And you know, when I send it out to customers, it would also be quite big. I mean, a pair of each one pair of boots, a box is huge.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, right now to send a shirt to the US, I lose money on it every time I send a shirt.
Mhm.
Registered airmail, I charge $10. It really costs like $18 to send one. And EMS, it's 20 on the site, but it's really closer to like 30, you know. So a pair of boots would cost like, I don't know, $50 to send or something like that. And I don't know, it just becomes a logistical mess. I think I'd have to like stack all this stuff everywhere and find a room for it. So, I'll kind of leave that to other people, for the time being. I'll stick more to, yeah, smaller kind of cloth items that take up a bit less room.
Mhm. What would you say? I saw you did the Dr. Souls interview. I read through that. It took me
Oh
forever.
yeah,
I thought it was a video, and so I was looking all over trying to find it.
no,
I finally realized it was a transcription, and it made so much more sense.
yeah,
That's why I haven't been able to find it for like the last 45 minutes. Would you
yeah.
say that there are any kind of boots or shoes that you're kind of interested in acquiring that you don't already have that you've been looking at or anything like that?
Yeah, I want a pair of the Lofgren combat boots in black. Um, just because I don't have a pair of black 6-inch, kind of lace up boots right now.
Mhm.
I just have the black engineers. And sometimes I feel like wearing a pair of black boots, and I don't, I only have the one. Um, that's the main, that's kind of the main thing right now. I mean, I have a pair of black engineers. I have a pair of, I don't know what's in the background there. I have the M43s. I have two derby shoes. One's in black, one in brown. I have some sneakers. Those are kind of the main styles that I like to wear. You know, maybe just a pair of brown lace ups. Smooth out leather, not a rough out, would be nice. But that's mostly about it. I don't have like a ton of different boots that I want to own or wear. But yeah, the black combats and maybe sort of something like the M43 and like, a brown horsehide or something, that would be enough for me.
Are you kind of picky about specific leathers, or is it more about just like where you're getting it from, or who
No,
you?
I really, I really don't care that much about the leather. I mean, I know in recent years, there's been a big emphasis on like exotic leathers, horse butts and it's, I don't know, I guess it started maybe with like the waxed flesh thing, that trend took off for a while. You saw a lot of waxed flesh, and then some brands had already been doing horsehide boots. I know Bryan, the bootmaker, had been using horsehide Chrome Excel, has been using it for years. And I know Real McCoy's, I think their Buco, they made like a horsehide engineer boot, and you'd see it occasionally, but in the past sort of 3 or 4 years or whatever, maybe 3 years, it's really taken off. Um, but I'm not that picky about it. I mean, you have to be careful. Sometimes it's just a gimmick. So I'm okay with, because different leathers work differently. I mean, sometimes like Shell Cordovan was another one of sort of the exotic leathers that was really big with like the style forum crowd and the guys who wear like a lot of Alden and stuff like that. But I mean, it's a specific kind of leather. It doesn't work in every instance. It's not great in the rain. It's not really great for like an engineer boot, even though there have been some examples, but it's kind of a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And some leathers, they're very cool and they look nice, but they're also very thick and very stiff. Some of the horse butts and things like that. So you have to balance in whether or not that's going to be comfortable for you, what kind of break-in you want to deal with. So yeah, that, I mean, it's popular, and I don't have a problem with it, but I'm not personally that picky, with leathers. I'm fine to get the combats in black Chrome Excel. I really have no problem with that.
Yeah, for sure. That was something, me getting into it. I only really got into everything kind of at the beginning of the summer. And so kind of
Hmm.
everyone trying to like, because obviously there's not a ton of, there's a ton of content. There's not a ton of, specific informative content, I would say, unless you want to just read people's discussions. I think
Yeah.
Jake from Almost Vintage Style is probably the best about actually putting down his thoughts and, like what his opinions on things are, on his blog. And obviously
Yeah.
he really likes the exotic leathers. And so I was reading his stuff and reading other people's stuff, and I was like, dang, maybe I need to go do that. And I had a Westco pre-order with some stuff, and
Hmm.
I ended up canceling those, but I got the Eastman tanker boots, and those are just
Okay.
regular. I think they're the horsehide Chrome XL. I'm not entirely sure though.
I think it's an Italian horsehide that he uses on that one.
Yeah, and I've really had, they've been awesome. I've had no complaints and no issues. And so I really think that personally, I don't really know if, for me, I think the big thing is it's usually a pretty decent, price hike as well. And I feel like I would rather
Yeah.
just not worry about them as much, pay a
Yeah.
little bit less out of pocket. And I mean, you keep the same silhouette, you keep the same overall look. You just don't have to worry about them as much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd rather not have to sort of baby them too much, or yeah, like you said, worry about them. Yeah, yeah. That's a nice pair of boots. Um, I don't have that, but yeah, that looks like, I don't know. It looks like a relatively soft leather. I'm not sure. It
It
looks
has been,
like,
I've had no
yeah,
complaints. They've been very, very comfortable from straight out the box.
Yeah, they look comfortable. It's not like a super stiff horse butt or anything like that.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
a bit nervous because I had a pair of Red Wings and I really didn't enjoy those. I haven't gotten rid of them yet, but they've just haven't been, ideal for me. And I also got them in the like rough and tough leather, which is a bit like modern looking, I guess. Like I kind of like the shiny, smooth, and it's like a bit,
Hmm.
I guess rough is the best way to say it. And it's just, it hasn't been my favorite. And so finding these has been perfect. Like every day I'm not at work, I'm wearing them, 24/7 as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the oil tanned leather from Red Wing it's tough and it's actually not bad. It's just the break in is kind of can be kind of horrible. I mean, I remember my 875. It was like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
Every day, my 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 ankles, my feet just hurt like crazy after wearing them.
Yeah.
Um, but they got there eventually. But yeah, you bring up a good point that there's not a whole lot of information, or it's hard to find information in this, sort of scene world these days. uh, which is true because like when I first got into this, most of the English information was on the forums. It was on Superfuture, it was on Denim Bro, and that was like most info. And then there were some good, really good blogs. And then after a few, slowly over the years, a lot of the blogs kind of fell by the wayside. And even Denim Bro right now, I mean, there's almost no activity at all. And Superfuture, there's some, but there was always like a lot of focus on just jeans more than anything. But I guess a lot of people have branched out and want to talk about other elements.
Mhm.
Um, so it's nice to see Jake post on his blog, because Instagram, as great as it is, it's not good for searching for information or anything. It's not a very good database because you can't really search it. It's all sort of ephemeral. It's just sort of passing by.
Mhm.
So I have to hit save on things that I want to look at, in the future. So yeah, it is hard to get information. There there haven't been some, the magazines. Japan has always had very good magazines for this kind of thing, or not always, but they have for, since the 70s, since the 80s. And we have some in English, like Men's File, even though his focus is also slightly different. Avant magazine from Eric Maggiore has been very good.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. It is, it can be hard sometimes to search for information online.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a bummer. I've bought a lot of like the Lightning magazines, and you see them, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Dang, I really want to know what this says." You're like, "I
Yeah. Yeah. I
was
mean, we
trying
need,
to, but."
yeah. I mean, Clutch magazine has been better about doing sort of bilingual stuff, but
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of Lightning magazines and things like that that it's like we need an English version of this, and no one's really making like an English version of something like that, So it would be interesting.
I feel like it could do well. I mean, I think there would be a lot of people. I think it just someone would have to just decide to do it and start it. Like there really are. There's a lot of stores all over.
Yeah,
In America that would be able to stock something like that.
yeah. I mean, I don't see why every store shouldn't have some magazines and books, because there are some magazines and books. A lot of them are Japanese, some of it's in English. Um, yeah, yeah, it would be interesting to see something like that in English.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, definitely. That would be something I'd be interested in. I have liked they at least usually do most of the titles in English and Japanese. It's just mostly
right?
the body text won't be. So you at least generally know what's going on. You can kind of and look at it and figure it out, but there's no in-depth analysis unless you really want to go through and try to figure everything out. Try to
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a photo translator that's not really going to work anyways or something like that.
yeah. Exactly. I mean, Google Translate with Japanese lately has not been, the absolute best. So
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. All right,
yeah.
I just have a few more questions, just a few more. Some more easy ones, I guess. So, what would you say would kind of be a few pieces of kind of vintage media that you would say really inspire you, and then a few kind of newer people or newer pieces of media that you would say that you also enjoy? whether or not for the
Uh,
brand or just personally?
yeah, I mean, for vintage media, always, it's going to be old catalogs, Sears Roebuck, Montgomery Ward, Charles Williams Store, some of these department stores, especially 20s and 30s, their catalogs, because there's just so much, you just go page after page of items. And then advertisements, especially from Big Yank, from Reliance Manufacturing Company. They did a lot of good ads with a lot of good illustrations that clearly show the shirt and all the details. So those are probably the best in terms of, actual original vintage media. Um, the new people, I guess, I don't know, you mean like people, like personalities or
People, personalities, brands, I don't know, like
brands.
shows, anything that you really, see and enjoy, I guess.
Yeah. Um, I mean, when I first got into this, I liked a lot of like John Lofgren's clothing items, and I like some different brands, but I did like his stuff at that time, and I liked some brands like Warehouse or Freewheelers. Um, and nowadays, I mean, I really liked, sort of everything back then that Mike Hodis from Rising Sun was doing. Now he does Runabout. But Rising Sun was very interesting. Even if I don't like every design detail, he was very interesting. He would do all kinds of really, really cool designs. And Christoph from Mr. Freedom would do things that I liked. Again, not everything was for me, and you can tell that it's not entirely my style when you look at my stuff. But I did like a lot of things that they did. They were willing to take chances and put out, designs. You just run it up the flagpole and see if it flies, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I like looking. I still like looking at what they come up with. It's interesting. It can be inspiring. You know.
You
Yeah.
did mention it earlier, and I had planned on asking you. You said the Heracles shirt for your rest of your life desert island outfit. What would the
Yeah.
rest of your outfit kind of look like if you'd had to do one for the rest of your life? You think?
Yeah. It would probably be the Heracles shirt, and then the Daybreak pants, and then a black leather belt, I guess, and then maybe my black Lofgren engineer boots, and then some sort of jacket. I mean, lately I don't have a jacket that I really like. I mostly wear a vintage 1950s CPO shirt that I have kind of like as an overshirt. That's probably my most worn jacket lately, which is not really a jacket.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't have like the perfect jacket or coat at the moment. I'm still looking for that.
Yeah.
Um, but that would probably be that would probably be it. I could wear that most days. Now I can't wear that most days here because it's like really hot from about May to October, and it's really humid and muggy.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that would probably be my one outfit for the rest of time kind of look.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have the same problem here in Southern California that like I mean, we don't get the muggy, but it's just,
Yeah.
burning hot for half the year. And then the rest of the time, even now, in the middle of December, if we're lucky, like it gets down in the 60s, but that's about it during the day. So I have I have two jackets and that's all I need, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I have more jackets than I really need, but I have some denim jackets, but I keep wanting to have pockets to use, so I don't really wear them that much. And my CPO doesn't really have great pockets, but slightly better. And I have some that are heavier that are nice, but I can't wear them most days because it's not cold enough really to even wear them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one thing I didn't expect was the how much you miss having pockets, like how much you don't
yeah,
realize that you actually want them when you have a jacket on. Like it's such a
yeah. I mean, brands like to put hand warmer pockets on like denim jackets and stuff, and that's kind of, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to have pockets just to throw keys and phones and random stuff in, you know, especially here. I mean, this is largely still kind of a cash culture place. So I'll get coins, change all the time, you know, and receipts and stuff all over, you know, so I just need to throw stuff in my pockets.